Victory Monday here on the PHNX Cardinals podcast, presented to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Johnny Venerable, joined as always, Bo Brock, downtown Phoenix at the PHNX headquarters, Damien Anderson in Las Vegas, maybe doing a little gambling, maybe not in his hotel room, but gambling nonetheless to join us with the Arizona Cardinals, who somehow, some way, gentlemen, after a lot of bad football, are 2-2, Bo Brock, on this Victory Monday.
It took some more bad football from their opponent, the Carolina Panthers, and Matt Rule showing that he's the true head coach that should be first fired in the NFL this season, for the Arizona Cardinals and their offense to show up in the second half and get that dub, a much-needed dub, to even the record at 2-2. Start checking things off. Next thing to check off the list, guys, is kind of getting that home dub. It's been nearly a calendar year since the Arizona Cardinals won at State Farm Stadium.
Yeah, it's a bit frustrating, Bo, but you have to focus on how hard wins are to get in the National Football League. And I think we just have to take a easy breath, guys, and be happy that the Cardinals won. We got 24 hours. I don't think it's been quite 24 hours yet. So let's relish in the win of the defense, of how they played, offense of how they responded. Yes, it's going to be a big test as they move forward, and they got to do it at State Farm Stadium if they want to be perceived as a legitimate, Super Bowl contender in 2022, 2023.
Mike A in the chat, they were not capris, they were football pants. They are on reserve now. Good news, Mike, is that we got over 100 likes yesterday on the postgame show. So the lucky padded football pants, not capris, football pants, will be back this Sunday trying to get us that third dub against the Philadelphia Eagles. And let's start there, Bo Brock. Cardinals, some hiccups in the injury bug, potentially. What can you tell us about what Kliff Kingsbury had to say on the injury front for the Cardinals?
Yeah, there's a couple guys that went out of the game yesterday. Matt Prater, we saw Eno Benjamin take over kickoff duty, and then the team go for two late in the game. Matt Prater braved through the leg injury that he had. He made a couple key kicks for the Cardinals, and then was a no-go the rest of the way. He's sore today, according to Kliff Kingsbury. They worked out some kickers today, including the legendary Rodrigo Blankenship, just an absolute specimen. I mean, talk about football player. We got this guy. Look at this guy. Look at the rec specs. This guy is just dialed in to just kick it from deep. Rodrigo Blankenship, Amendola, who spent time with the Chiefs after they had an injury to their kicker, who, according to Kyle Odegaard, would be the guy if Prater can't go. And then Justin Pugh, an update from Kliff Kingsbury on Pugh, dealing with the elbow issue. He's day-to-day, the cliche from Kliff, the old stock statement on injuries. But then you got some updates on some three key players, guys, who are set and designated to return from IR. Antoine Wesley, the wide receiver. It would diversify this wide receiver core, give him some size. And then you've got the backup quarterback, Colt McCoy, and Antonio Hamilton, the guy who Kliff Kingsbury said had won the job in camp, was playing the best of any DBs before his freak accident in the kitchen. He would come back, and those guys would have to get back into football shape. Damien Anderson, what does that look like, in your opinion, for them to potentially play this week?
Well, both, first off, right, it's them returning just to practice, I think, right? Like, I don't think that they've been designated, as active on the 53. But I think what it means is them getting healthy is the good thing. The fact that we've always talked about the stretch that they're going to go through without D-Hop, right? So I think that if you get any D-Hop-like players, Johnny, and a guy like Wesley that could get those 50-50 balls that bring the Bo, as you mentioned, a bigger size, a bigger wingspan, rather than the smaller guys that are quick and fast and run the under routes, with the exception of Hollywood Brown. So I think that having Wesley back adds another dimension to that offense. Obviously, McCoy, depth, Hamilton, depth, that defense can continue to get better because they're going to go against an onslaught of offensive firepower, right? And you have to be prepared, because the way that this offense is right now, with starting slow and finishing fast, that defense is going to have to be well prepared to fight these, play the entire game and fight these offenses.
Yeah, I want to touch on what you just said, Damien. So the offense has started slow. That's not a surprise to anybody who's watched this team. It's been kind of the point of emphasis leading into the Philadelphia game. And I mean, I have been a Vance Joseph critic to begin the season, mostly because he doesn't play young players. But you'd be hard pressed to find me not a staunch supporter of him right now. because of the fact I feel like he bailed Kliff Kingsbury out yesterday. I rewatched the game last night, drive by drive. They just kept getting extra possessions for Kyler Murray to get this offense right. And right now, Vance Joseph, to me, seems like the guy I have more confidence in, Bo Brock, rather than Kliff Kingsbury. And I would no chance I would say at the beginning of the year, because for all of Kliff's faults, he can orchestrate offense with talent. And now you've got Vance Joseph. Like, this isn't a knock on somebody like Dennis Gardeck, but he's having like career days, interceptions, sacks, right? Zach Allen's transformed into a fantastic young player. We'll talk about him more. I don't know. Like, do you feel like there's a part of the fan base that feels like Vance Joseph has bailed Kliff Kingsbury out? There's another part that feels like maybe Baker Mayfield helped a little bit with Vance's situation, and it helped not facing a top 10 quarterback.
And I don't think there's any doubt that people think that Baker Mayfield, his days as a starting NFL quarterback are done, and it showed itself on Sunday. But for Vance Joseph to get his defense to take advantage of that, you have to tip his cap. Where I don't think that Kliff Kingsbury, when you look at this Carolina team or maybe a Rams team that wasn't at full strength, he was not able to do with his offense, that there's been so much invested into the offense where you can't say the same about the defense and who Vance Joseph personnel wise was given to start off against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. It was borderline unfair. So the personnel issues that he was dealing with, and now to see him kind of get stronger and stronger week by week, and his game plan, being able to be executed better and better, and this defense to be able to get off the field as much as it has the last couple of games is like a tip of the cap to Vance Joseph. I think people forgot that Vance Joseph could be a very solid defensive coordinator in the NFL, and that he is the guy that some NFL teams wanted to interview for head coaching position for second go at it. And there's reasons for that. You kind of lose sight of that sometimes when you don't have the players to do it. I mean, he had 2 NFL caliber corners to start this season. That's just not enough when you're going up against Mahomes, when you're going up against Stafford, even Derek Carr in the first half. It was a nearly impossible feat for Vance Joseph. But when you see him go up against a team like the Panthers and has Trayvon Mullen in there who played 18 snaps on defense, how different it looks. And it's going to look different with Antonio Hamilton coming back. You got to like it. You have to be encouraged.
Guys, as I said, I have to put context with everything. And like Jalen Blair said in the chat, I mean, the defense did their job, right? They played a kind of a poor offense with Baker Mayfield. They had struggled. It was very well documented up into this game, right? The defense controlled the line of scrimmage. They were able to get turnovers. They were able to get Kyler Murray, extra possessions, as you guys mentioned. That's a great job. They played at or above what they needed to do. And I mean, whether that was coaching, whether that was, personnel guys winning the one-on-one battles, the defense did their job. I think what's the issue or what we should be questioning is, why is the offense struggling? Was it trying to get Rondell Moore, Bo involved a little bit too early? What was the reasons why the offense continued to struggle and they have this turnaround? Because that Carolina defense was solid, and the Cardinals were able to put 26 second half points.
All right, we got a surprise guest here on PHNX
I got a quick question
Cardinals.
for you guys.
Shane Diefenbach.
It's just a yes or no question. Yes, T. Higgins is a more talented receiver than Hollywood Brown.
Talented?
I mean,
probably
better size.
Probably.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, all 3 yes.
Yeah.
Probably
across the board. But there's no I don't know why we're slandering Hollywood Brown after.
Jane, get out. This is not, fuck around time. Okay. This is serious stuff. And I want to talk about the fact that the Cardinals offense, if you would have told me before the start of the season that Vance Joseph's defense in weeks 3 and 4 would give up an average of 16 points per game, when just as spare parts and misfit toys and whatever, I would have said he's doing a hell of a good job. And I think I've been so polluted by that week 1 no-show against Kansas City. And then I watched something like that happen to Todd Bowles last night. And I'm like, okay, maybe let's pump the brakes considerably. Because all offseason, what did we say, the 3 of us, Frank Sanders, all offseason was like, well, the offense is going to have to carry the defense first, 6 to 8 weeks of the season. As they figure out roles and they get some young guys involved. I think so much of the animosity that was toward Vance Joseph, right or wrong, came from the fact of the young players not playing. And if you're going to struggle defensively, we want to see growth from these young players. And yesterday, we really got the taste of Simmons. Was he great? No, but he played a bunch. And he was around the ball in a very nice defensive group effort. Zaven Collins, week in, week out, is improving with snaps. Zach Allen, young player, improving with snaps. could potentially be a Pro Bowl caliber player. Byron Murphy doesn't leave the field anymore. He was one of their highest graded players of the day yesterday. He's one of the highest graded defenders on the Cardinals this year. More of that from Vance Joseph, please. Like, as much as I don't want to see Devon Kennard play, and he was one of their lowest rated players yesterday, like, to Bo's point, like, what do they have? What's the personnel that you're going to substitute for Devon Kennard, right? Like, I want to see Majay Sanders. I'm not at practice every day. I want to see Cameron Thomas get started on the base defense. Now, if the Cardinals had somebody like Robert Quinn and Vance wasn't playing him for Devon Kennard, then we have bigger problems. But I'm in a position now, I will give Vance Joseph the benefit of the doubt, and I will put extra heat on Kliff Kingsbury, because even with the injuries at receiver, the offensive line relatively healthy, you got a ton of quality running backs, Damien Anderson. You need to be more creative. And Bo Brock, it starts this week against Philadelphia.
Yeah, it does. But let's remind everybody, 29 shopping days until the NFL trade deadline. And when you bring up Robert Quinn, if they're going to make any investments, if they're going to make any deals, it's got to be on the defensive side of football. Can we all agree on that?
100%.
Agreed.
I mean, just bless Vance Joseph, reward him for what he's done with less.
I like that.
And doing more.
But guys, I mean, I think that I think us being fans, you got to throw the league into categories, right? You got to say like subpar, middle of the pack, and then like elite leaders, right? And the teams that the Arizona Cardinals lost to are two Super Bowl contending leader type
100%.
teams, right? Okay, so we acknowledge that. And what did they struggle with? They struggle with getting off the football field, right? Producing offensively and stopping the run. And that's what they're going to have to. What they're going to is the concern moving forward, right? This was a winnable game, a game that they should have won, and they took care of business. To me, and I don't want to minimize a win in the National Football League, right? Respect. The Cardinals were far and above the better team in defense, did their thing, offense responded and caught up the second half. To me, it's moving forward and playing these balanced teams, right, Bo? And you can't afford that margin for error, minimizes, over time, and you can't afford to start slow. And it's like, what do you fix with that, Johnny? Is it going up tempo? Is it keeping Eno in the game? Is it, is it Wesley joining the squad? So when Kyler does a 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 and he throws the fade, we actually have a better than a 10% chance to catch it.
I think it's play calling, because you look at that first drive when they went for it and that egregious 4th down end around that didn't go anywhere to Rondell Moore. They were gutting Carolina up the middle. And if they continued to do that, they would have hit pay dirt. If you would have been smart and continued to run Eno up the gut with his physical, violent running style that the Cardinals desperately need, the explosiveness, James Conner, Darrell Williams, that's who the Cardinals need to be right now. And Kliff Kingsbury, again, we're living week to week with Kliff, and he's bought himself some time. But, like, you have to understand, when the personnel doesn't complement you offensively from a receiver standpoint, and your offensive line, listen, I know we got people in the chat saying the O-line's terrible. They've given up the second fewest QB hits this year, right? They've given up like under 5 sacks. Like, it's not elite. No one's confusing this unit with like Cleveland's unit or the Cowboys from 5 years ago. But like the bad O-lines, we saw one yesterday. It wasn't in red and white. It was for Carolina. That O-line's terrible, right? Now, Kyler Murray mitigates a lot of that. But I lean into what they were doing well, especially in the second half. Like that Will Hernandez fluke ejection, you'll have to convince me. Cardinals were scoring on that drive. They were pushing them around. Like, that's what I want to see them do, because that's what you're going to need to do until DeAndre Hopkins comes back. Antoine Wesley, for all intents and purposes, like, he's not going to be a full go, even if he's active Sunday. Rondell Moore, we're going to talk about him, like, looks far away from becoming the explosive playmaker we once hoped. Shit, man, you got 4 backs that we really like. You got 3 tight ends that could potentially be studs in their own unique way. We got Trey McBride getting involved, Bo Brock. Like, there is a recipe to win with the parts that you have and win big, I think.
Yeah, but there's been so many lumps along the way trying to figure out what the best setup is for this offense. And I think, unfortunately, something that is such a strength of Kyler Murray, the deep ball, has been completely taken off and out of the playbook. We haven't seen that, but it's fine. If you can table that before DeAndre Hopkins comes back, that's fine. But I don't want to see on 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, Kyler Murray dialing up a deep ball when I've got Greg Dortch, crossing the field and he's wide open, and you can move the chain.
That's if Greg Dortch is on the field,
right?
That's
I mean,
it's a whole nother
that's a big point of frustration for fans. I mean, when Dortch has played so well and you see him significantly out-snapped, or you see Eno Benjamin gets 11 offensive snaps. Was it 11 offensive snaps 11, and 6 touches? 6 touches, and he was as productive as he was. and him not to be rewarded with more touches. I mean, he's rewarded with kicking off. That I don't think that's a reward. I think that I don't know. I don't know what that does to players' morale when guys are playing well. I mean, we saw Isaiah Simmons that they're finally putting him on the field after all this praise about how well he's practiced and how well he's played. But you want to see it more and continue to ride the hot hand instead of trying to fit these guys in like we saw with Rondale Moore in game 1 of his 2022 season.
So, I mean, the aspect of that is Moneyball or economics, right? I mean, you invest in a guy like Rondale Moore and you take him with a second-round pick. The expectation, the investment is, hey, we expect you to be out in the football field. And I'm sure that is the suit from, or the thought process from the top down. Unfortunately, Greg Dortch, as we know, a guy that, was picked up and has made some plays, have been the foundation of this team's, at that point, right? 1 and 2 start. The good things that we saw with the Arizona Cardinals, Greg Dortch was a common denominator in that. Yeah. And I think the fact that they were 1 and 2, why they were, easily comfortable moving away from that, right? Because they were, it's not like they're undefeated going into the game. So, hey, we could get Rondale involved. This is the game where we could take chances, Johnny. We could see, if he's got his sea legs back, if he could go out there and make plays, because we know that, our defense is, outmatches their offense, and we could hang around for a bit and turn it on in the second half. I'm not sure if it's that, but I just know where this offense is with trying to figure out their identity. That gives them an advantage. When they try and line up and do traditional football, I mean, they're, I wouldn't say outmanned, but it appears as though that they're trying too hard, right? But when they're going tempo and they're moving the ball and Kyler's using his athleticism and extending plays and improving, it seems like that, and getting Eno involved, Bo, to your point, it seems like that's when they're moving the ball. Kyler's comfortable and everyone's on the same page.
Easy, no steroids. Dortch needs playing time, at least 50-50 with Moore till Moore shows otherwise. And I think part of that, Easy, is that, like, Cardinal fans, like, I don't know if this is incorrect. Yeah, I don't know if this is incorrect or not, but it certainly didn't look like Rondale Moore was running the same route tree as Greg Dortch. Like, it looked like Rondale Moore was back to his old tired shtick from last year, end arounds, gimmicky crap, whereas Greg Dortch was like a real receiver in a real offense, right? Like, if you're insistent on playing Rondale over Greg Dortch, which is something I think a lot of people push back on, at least give him that same route tree and let him see if he can gamble and take advantage. You can gamble, by the way, right now on DraftKings. New customers can bet just $5 on any team to win, get $200 back in free bets if they do. We got a big Monday night game in the division tonight. Niners hosting the Rams. You can bet on it. If that's not enough, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings step-up same-game parlays. Right now, for every leg you add, you can boost your winnings up to 100%. With bigger payouts, why would you bet on football anywhere else? You wouldn't. And to make things even sweeter, you can throw down on step-up same-game parlays once per game day all year long. You did it yesterday. You can do it today. You can do it Thursday. It's simple. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use that promo code PHNX. That's promo code PHNX at DraftKings Sportsbook. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See those show notes for details, Bo Brock.
We had an awesome time hanging out all together at Four Peaks, our final Wednesday of the month last week. Had a couple beers, had some delicious food, talked some Cardinals football, saw some listeners, some viewers out there. Thanks for everybody that joined us. We've got some great events, more great events coming up at Four Peaks out there, H Street Brewery, hanging out. Stay tuned for more information. If you're going to enjoy some delicious Four Peaks beer, the Wow Wheat or, Kilt Lifter, Pumpkin Porter, got to be 21 years or older and drink responsibly.
Keeping the conversation continuing with the Cardinals' big win yesterday at Carolina. And we like to dabble in the metrics. We love our folks at Pro Football Focus. It's not the end-all, be-all, gang, but sometimes it can paint a little bit of picture. And here were some notable grades from Pro Football Focus from their Week 4 victory against the Panthers. And no surprise, Zach Allen, the most dominant player on the field on either side of the ball, gets the highest grade, 82.2, blossoming into the player we all thought he could be, could he stay healthy. And gentlemen, every week I look at these rankings, Hollywood Brown's near the top, and it just kind of underscores how successful that trade has been for the Cardinals. He is on pace. I did the math yesterday, just under 1,500 yards and 8 touchdowns. I mean, I love this rookie receiving class. We picked it over time and time again, the three of us on this show. You're not getting that from anybody in this rookie receiving class. Hollywood Brown has come into this offense and said, I'll be your number one receiver until Hopkins comes back and then after. So I'm loving that trade. I'm also loving what I'm seeing from Will Hernandez. Was incredibly physical yesterday. How about Eno Benjamin, 80.1, somebody that I think goes without saying, one of their most productive 7th-round picks in the last 10 years. Zach Ertz had a nice bounce-back game at 74.2. Well, Brock, you look at these numbers, a lot of positives. What stands out to you?
The biggest thing is everybody but Benjamin is playing a lot. So it's like the coaching staff is noticing who's playing at a high level out there. And most of these guys that graded as high, the highest on the Arizona Cardinals, like Zach Allen, Zaven Collins, Hollywood Brown, they're not coming off the playing field. But guy like Eno Benjamin is barely playing, and he's making an impact and making the most of it. You know, I really do like him taking more of a Chase Edmonds role going forward until he shows you he can't. And I think that's the biggest takeaway. Byron Murphy was fantastic yesterday, kind of a under the radar performance. Again, you know, say what you will about Baker Mayfield, but there are talented receivers, and they didn't make a peep because Byron Murphy was having such a great game yesterday.
Yeah, guys. I mean, what stands out to me, I just like the fact that you see Zaven Collins continuing to churn and show up, right? I mean, although it's not the perfect game like we talked about a little bit earlier, but he's continued to make plays. He's continued to put himself in the right position. And for all intents and purposes, is going to continue to get better. Like, I thought yesterday was a great learning opportunity for him and guys like Isaiah Simmons to just get out there where they know that they're athletically better than their opponent. You know, it's probably similar to their college days, right? So they have a better team. Everybody's, you know, going to win at their positions, and you go out there and if you make a mistake, it's going to be easily corrected, because the opponent is just not that good. And Zaven continuing to show up. Zach Allen is, as you said, Johnny, becoming a grown man, but Dennis Gardeck, a fighter, finding ways around the ball. And when you look at him, you just think that he's one of there's probably just a strong firefighter. And then you find out this dude plays defensive end in the National Football League, and he's making plays. I mean, kudos to him. Johnny, I mean, Bo, as you mentioned, minimal plays, high efficiency. I like that combo, as we've seen in the chat, similar to what we saw last year with Connor and Chase. And it could easily be Eno and James as well as Williams.
Some other notable grades that were not listed here that I know people are probably interested about. And again, I don't want to give away everything from Pro Football Focus. They do good stuff. Get a membership there. Isaiah Simmons,
Netflix password. Let everybody use it.
Isaiah Simmons had a grade of about 50.7. Not great, but he did have a 64.7 grade against the run. But the most important thing is he's getting more snaps, and they're not.
What's that data telling you, Johnny?
That data is telling me.
That
I'm always concerned with his run defense. Dating back to last year, it was like he's not best served to be in the box, because I know he can cover tight ends when he's put in position to succeed. Don't make that face, Bo. If I say he can't cover tight ends,
like, which tight end are we talking about?
Ian Thomas is fine. Ian Thomas is good, right?
Yeah. You play Travis Kelce once every 4 years, you can have a bad day. Lucky Fotu, 36.2. That's not great. On the heels of Rashad Lawrence's injury, and then you saw Michael Dogbe starting. Yeah. That is the area still that if the team is going to make a trade, and we get asked all the time, you know, what are they going to do? Is Daron Payne available? I mean, it sounds like based on Washington, their current situation, he is very much up for grabs in a contract year. You know, we don't root for injuries or losses on this show unless they're in the NFC West, but our friends at CHGO, like, if the Bears continue to lose games and it's around midseason, I 100% think they will deal Robert Quinn. He is not part of their future. He's over 30 years old. They want to get capital, you know, moving forward. They're not going to sign him to an extension on a team that's bad and they're trying to rebuild. Robert Quinn, if the Bears are not in the wild card race, if they go on a 5 or 6 game losing streak, will be dealt. It will just
they're not in the wild card. Can we be real? They're not.
Johnny, Johnny, I'm throwing it to you right now. I'm throwing it to you. You're talking to Michael. Let's hear it. Let's hear the pitch.
I would say, hey, we are trying to make the postseason. We feel like Robert Quinn is the missing piece defensively to complement what Marcus Golden does well and give us the alpha field general Chandler Jones-esque type of pass rusher that we don't have right now. Gardeck got the first sack right now from an outside linebacker in this group out of 4 games. That's not great. Marcus is going to get his eventually. But I want to tee off on Jimmy G, right, who's a statue with no Trent Williams. I want to take advantage of that matchup. I want to take advantage of going up against Geno Smith with a couple rookie tackles, right? Matthew Stafford with a bad elbow. I need all the horses I can get on the defensive line. And I feel like I could go to Michael and say, 1 third-rounder and a future, maybe a future third, you've got that compensation. That, to me, you get Robert Quinn. If you're around 500, you get Hopkins back, you're going to the playoffs. Michael Bidwell, listen, it's draft picks. And if I'm Steve Keim, look what I just did with Hollywood Brown.
Right.
He's a stud. He's going to have 1,500
picks.
yards. That's right. I want to go to the playoffs. I want to hang division championship banners and God, someday a Super Bowl championship banner. I don't care about the player I'm going to take from freaking, Boston College, with all due respect to Zach Allen or whomever on day 2 of the draft that's not going to play this year. They got 2/3 on the roster right now. They're not playing. Robert Quinn comes in. He kicks immediate ass, and he is a tone setter in the NFC West. Cardinals, I love them. They're feisty on defense right now. They need more ass kickers up front and making Stafford and Jimmy G and Geno uncomfortable. That's my sales pitch, Damien Anderson.
I like that, but I'm going to throw this out to both of you guys.
People are saying pass in the chat. What?
No,
what?
No, I like it. So is Robert Quinn to the Cardinals what Von Miller was to the Rams?
A poor man's that. And I think that Von got, I would say they got housed in the trade, but they won the Super Bowl, but they had to give up a second. I don't think you'd have to give up a second for Robert Quinn. I think you could give up a 3rd-round pick.
I would like him to kind of broaden their shopping list a little bit. Like I said, 29 shopping days till the NFL trade deadline. Robert Quinn.
He had like 8
Robert Quinn. Here, let me
say
say something about Robert Quinn. He's not performing. He's got 1 sack so far. He's not grading very well. If he was going to make our trending list, he wouldn't be on the right side of that we're going to get to later in the show. But like a Jerry Hughes, a guy who's a little bit longer in the tooth, playing at a high level for the Houston Texans, 4 sacks. You probably could get away with giving up less than a 3rd-round pick for him, a 4th, a 5th, whatever you got left after all these trades you've made. You just kind of start to look around the league, see the teams that are not performing or not in contention and will certainly be out by the beginning of November. Steve Keim has got to get somebody. Like, you can look at all the next level analytics, and we've got one as far as Zach Allen, as far as pass rush win rate, and he's in the top 10. That's all well and good. But as far as actually getting home and impacting the game and forcing turnovers, we're not seeing a lot of that. And they need somebody who's an ass kicker, as you say, Johnny. And it's not who they have right now in the building. We'll see how it really looks. I know you want to get a point at. We'll see how it looks with better coverage, and if these guys can get home with better coverage in the secondary too.
You love your DBs. Quickly, not to interrupt you, Bo, but a question in the chat. Wouldn't you rather have solid, reliable offensive linemen, according to Daniel? That's always tricky because teams, even when they're not going anywhere, do not trade starting linemen. Because if they've got a young quarterback like a Fields, they don't want that guy getting his brains beat in on Sunday. Like that is a disheartening move. We have seen time and time again, the positions that get dealt are typically skilled players, receivers who are on the last year of their contract, or tight ends, and pass rushers, whether it be D linemen or outside linebackers. Leonard Williams got dealt. Cardinals traded for Marcus Golden. We just talked about Von Miller. Like, front 7 players and some secondary players, but mostly front 7 players get dealt. Pass rushers are going to be available, DA, for this team, and it's time to take advantage for this Arizona Cardinal franchise, because the offense is going to get to a point where they are going to be so talented they have to fail forward. They're going to sleepwalk their way, in my opinion, to at least 25 points per game. When you get DeAndre Hopkins back, assuming everybody else is healthy, with Hollywood now and Ertz and goodness, Trey McBride and all these backs, you're going to be too potent offensively just for this kind of ineptitude to continue. The defense, I've said it time and time again, I worry about the injury concerns with J.J. Watt and Zach Allen. Like, you could show up in November and it could be not great personnel-wise, and so I would hedge your bet and get some help now.
And Johnny, I hate to continue to reference, a divisional opponent, but last year's, Super Bowl champion as a balanced team and their ability to get to the quarterback. I mean, we saw that. You have to be balanced, and the offense bailed out the defense sometimes, where they did have all pro football players, but they didn't always show up, right? We talk about these trades that they made. The offense had to go out there and win football games. To your point, I do expect this offense continue to be productive, continue to get better, right? And I think, where does that align, Bo, with that 29 days and Hop coming back? So it's got to be close, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be right
That'll
around.
be like Christmas, man. Just give us all the better players.
But no, Johnny, I think that they have to go defense, right? I mean, we talked about they've hedged their bets. I mean, yeah, sure, offensive line, that's not going to happen because everything that you have to protect is your quarterback. So no one's letting that go. And if it's a team that Bo, continues to stress, a team that maybe isn't playing well, but they got some talent, then that's what your scouts is for, your personnel guys is finding that guy that's going to complete your offense, whether it's taking pressure off Zaven Collins, taking pressure off Zach Allen, to the ability to make opposing quarterbacks uncomfortable, throw picks. It's going to have a cascade effect throughout that defense, right? And that's what you want to have and help your offense, right? But you want your offense on the field as most as possible because that's what you're heavily invested in. And I think that only makes sense to get that complimentary or gem pass rusher via free agency before this trade deadline.
It would be huge, and the Arizona Cardinals are armed with a pretty big amount of cap space at this point in the season, to where they could go out and make almost any move work as far as the cap goes. And then they're also, they have most of their draft capital remaining. So Steve Keim, I mean, his ability to make future moves throughout the rest of the season, like we saw the Ertz trade last year, right? And then it was pretty much done. They weren't players for, guys the rest of the way out like the Rams were. They're in prime position to be shopping throughout the year and improving this roster throughout that.
But Bo, Johnny, and I know that we're going to get into this category on trending up and down, but if they do get a stellar, right, defensive lineman, depending upon, like, say, for example, Quinn, right, and they may have cap space, but how does that impact, like, dude's owed X amount of dollars, right? How does that impact the guys that are coming up on contracts?
I think you treat it like this is we're adding this guy for this year, and don't worry about this offseason and try to win games now. And I think your fan base would embrace that, because you're going to want to pay Zach Allen, Byron Murphy, and Will Hernandez because they're young and you've groomed 2 of 3 of them and you feel like they've got futures with your franchise. And that's not to say like we don't like Robert Quinn, but I can tell you right now, Robert Quinn comes here and kicks ass for 8 games and helps you get to the playoffs. It's twofold. Number 1, great move. Congratulations on your playoff berth. Number 2, you get a comp pick in the spring if he signs a robust deal with somebody else. It may not be a 3rd. You may not recoup the pick you lost, but you can maybe a 4th or a 5th. To me, it's just we overvalue draft picks. I'm as guilty as anybody. The goal is to win football games. That's why Steve Keim is still employed, because he's been able to make these shrewd trades to help win them games. He's over 500 as a GM. So I think I don't like the mindset of hoarding draft picks when this team doesn't draft well, when this team has not shown a resume of, look at all these players we've developed. They've done a great job adding talent at the trade deadline. Last year, they probably don't make the playoffs without Zach Ertz. This year, I think they're just still too average. I know Easy No Steroids is asking who's available. The article I was reading this morning mentioned 3 players. We've talked about him ad nauseum. Deron Payne, who's a free agent to be. He's kicking ass for the Commanders, batting balls down. Of course, we talked about Robert Quinn. And then Roquan Smith's name is still listed. I mean, if the Bears start to tank, we'll see. Quinnen Williams is also kind of in the mix. Does he fit what Robert Saleh does with the Jets, right? They could potentially move him.
There's been some outbursts, too, on the sideline.
There has. Those are the kind of things where it's like the team knows that they're not in their future plans. Let's get a draft pick. Let's maybe play a younger guy at the position, see what they have. But, Bo, it's one of those situations where I would not bet on Steve Keim not making an acquisition. He has done it 3 trading deadlines in a row, and there are clear areas of need for this defense to upgrade.
Yeah, and he can completely redeem himself for a pretty quiet offseason. Mostly retaining guys, and if he's a little bit bullish between now and November 1st and maybe even beyond, if guys get disgruntled and don't want to play for a loser, a team going nowhere, and they end up just getting bought out of their contracts and become free agents, the Arizona Cardinals will be in prime spot to say, hey, this is our record. This is where we think we're going. This is our quarterback. He's locked in. Let's do this. Join the crew and let's go. Let's deepen this roster. I think that would be appealing to mostly anybody, especially, weather's nice here in December and January, Damien. Like, they've got some very appealing things about this organization because they've been able to weather this storm a little bit. I mean, if they lose to Carolina yesterday, probably can't say all those things, but they're in a good spot, for not only when DeAndre Hopkins comes back to also be appealing to guys on the trade deadline, the trade market and beyond.
Guys, is Simmons? I know you've been seeing it in the chat, Johnny and Bo. Is Simmons
I see it. I live it every day.
Is Simmons trade bait?
No,
I mean,
I don't think so. I think Simmons is the defensive Andy Isabella. The team never dealt Andy Isabella. We'll see what happens now that they've got a logjam at wide receiver. What if his days are numbered with the Arizona Cardinals? But
Roquan for
can
Simmons?
you imagine?
That's the only kind of trade, Damien, where you have to get a player like that back.
I would be hesitant with the Roquan more over anything, any position, just because of how complex Vance's defense seems to be. Could he play right away at that middle linebacker?
What does that
spot?
tell about Vance, though? Like, you can't make All-American Georgia top 10 draft pick who's kicked ass in the NFL fit.
He'd figure it out.
But on the fly, they're gonna trust him, and we talk about all the coaching staff with their trust issues, and took Trayvon Mullen how many weeks to play a cornerback spot?
Yeah, to me, the only trade I would do is if you could somehow convince the Chicago Bears Simmons and a couple draft picks for Roquan and Robert Quinn, and then you just plug those two guys in.
You wouldn't have any issue with Isaiah Simmons going and figuring it out in Chicago. I mean, that's a more dysfunctional franchise.
But is this a game that he steps up and he shadows or spots Jalen Hurts?
He still didn't look like he played with a bunch of confidence against the Panthers. Like, he looked kind of all over the place. He missed some tackles. To me, it's just, if he plays, the more he plays, I feel like he's going to settle into a role. But is he ever going to be elite? I feel like we're at the point now where that ship's kind of sailed. Yeah.
Do you think he played because, he earned it, or do you think it's because Vigil went out?
I mean, I think you just answered your own question there. I mean, just can we be honest about that? And I know Steve Keim would not want to sell low on a player like Isaiah Simmons. And so you'd have to do it like a Jonathan Cooper, where he was a throw-in with a draft pick to get Chandler Jones. And it's just like, well, the Patriots value Jonathan Cooper. Well, did they really, or did they just want a second-round pick for Chandler Jones? But I can tell you what I value is staying safe and happy and healthy, and seeing all you guys at our many, many events here at PHNX Cardinals. Do me a favor, though. Go get a COVID-19 vaccine. They're free for everybody 5 and older. Those 12 and older are also eligible for the booster shot. It's super simple and easy, guys. All you got to do is visit azhealth.gov/find vaccine for a location near you, Bo.
I was able to join my wife, and she's redecorating our house, and I was able to do it just by using one of our many great sponsors, More Furniture. I look like an absolute genius, usually not on that front, but I was able to by just saying, let's check out morefurniture.com and check out their fall sale. And we found I was a hero for the first time. Usually my wife was just like, you're full of shit. You don't know what you're talking about, nicely. But More Furniture made me look like I'm an interior designer all of a sudden. You guys can do the same. Check out morefurniture.com.
Elon in the chat, Roquan is a dog. Somebody said Roquan's getting older. Well, Bobby Wagner's kicking ass for the Rams at 32. Roquan's 25. I don't know. I'm add just good players and figure it out later. And I know people are freaking out. What do you do? How do you pay everybody? Well, I mean, you try to win games this year. And this team, this franchise doesn't have a lot of back-to-back playoff seasons under their belt. And you want to show the fans who have not seen a home win, by the way, in a calendar year, that you're invested in winning games in 2022, something, Bo, that they didn't do this offseason.
Let's do this. And you guys do it in the chat as well. As far as, let's just prioritize. What's the trade market hierarchy as far as who you would want to see the Arizona Cardinals buy? Would it be Roquan Smith, Robert Quinn, or Daron Payne?
Drop it in the chat, and then
you got to throw Montez Sweat too. You got to throw Montez Sweat in there too.
Do you think Washington would be able to part ways with Montez Sweat?
I mean,
I think everybody's available for that franchise.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, you brought up that great point, Bo, talking about teams that are struggling. I mean, that's a team that can just
zero sacks for Montez this year.
So, I mean, I think that's a great polling question for Twitter, Instagram, everything.
I got 3 answers. Everybody saying Roquan. I mean, We just can't quit. Us Cardinal fans can't quit our inside linebacker.
It's crazy though. I mean, Roquan or Deron Payne probably, when you look at it, how many linebackers this team is carrying right now? Like, I would almost say Deron Payne might.
I think that's my vote too.
Yeah,
I want to see Deron Payne and J.J. Watt and Zach Allen beat the holy hell out of these offensive lines, these suspect offensive lines in the NFC West, and they're definitely players trending up for this group. And speaking of trending up, gentlemen, it's our trending up, trending down segment of the week. This is who's on the rise for the Cardinals. Let's see it. Producer Emma, trending up. Listen, Vance Joseph, you get all the flowers today, my friend. You kicked all sorts of ass yesterday, gave up 1 touchdown. Shouldn't have given up the field goal that you gave up because the defense or the offense put you in a terrible position. You're doing it with a bunch of spare parts. Love you, VJ. How about Eno Benjamin? Kicking off, making a tackle, averaging 7 yards per touch, needs more touches. This has gone from, with Eno Benjamin, gentlemen, a nice story. He's made the roster. He's hanging around to, is he going to be like the full-blown new Chase Edmonds? Do we have to now believe what Kliff Kingsbury was saying, Bo Brock, Damien Anderson in the offseason? This is RB1A to James Conner. And then lastly, the contract kids, Zach Allen, kicking ass, Byron Murphy kicking ass, Will Hernandez literally kicking ass and then getting thrown out of the game for it. This is my trending up group for the week. Bo, what do you think of it?
Yeah, I love the contract year kids. We mentioned Byron Murphy. We've talked about Zach Allen. Zach Allen was our DraftKings king of the game because of all the pressures he was getting. He finally got home with the sack. He had the 3 passes defensed. He was just a madman out there. And he told us today, we talked to Zach Allen at the Arizona Cardinals facility, and he said that he was working out 10 hours a day, 6 days a week to get back from his ankle surgery and get ready for this contract year because, DA, why not? I mean, he had to perform this year. He's performing this year. And, yeah, these guys are having big years at the right time.
Yeah, timing is everything. And to see guys maximize the opportunity, and we talk about having those signature moments, and that's about playing well throughout the season to get them signature dollars, that being Allen and Murphy. But to go with Vance, Johnny, put some respect on his name because you hated him 2 weeks ago. I'm just going to put it out there.
I didn't hate him. I'm just going to say Vance was able to hold the Rams to what, Johnny? He was able to hold the Rams to what? How many points?
Johnny had to go for a quick second, so
okay.
Bo,
so you know what I mean, Bo.
He texted me and was like, "I gotta go open the garage. Can you put a graphic back up?"
Okay.
Hey! I don't mind that. Dude, we're trying to do behind the scenes stuff here. Of course, we got a broken garage door opener over here.
Okay. So you're back, and I appreciate it. So I appreciate that hustle.
Listen,
I'm just going to say.
24 hours.
I'm just going to say Vance has been doing his job, right? I mean, with this offense, heavily invested.
Johnny the trending down graphic.
I literally took 10 seconds to do what I needed to do.
Give me like 5 minutes, all right?
But what I'm saying, I need you to hear me. Vance held the Rams to what? Van held the Rams to what?
21 points.
21 points. You hold a Super Bowl champ to 21 points and have a Triple Crown winner and a Super Bowl, MVP-esque quarterback, savvy what they do, to hold that offense with the young talent and guys running every which way, right? Getting demoted left and right, getting green dots put on 17 different players' helmet every week. Yet he held that team to 21 points. I mean, and everyone just skips over the offense who you've invested over, nearly all of your salary cap.
I can tell you definitively, my thought process has been consistent on this, where I have let the fact that he has not played young players skew my perception of him.
I got you.
Because I do not.
But do you get it why now he doesn't, though?
I question whether or not he can teach young players the game at a high level.
Can I add
coaching?
To this
so
list?
You're saying coaching. You're saying coaching, right, guys?
Yeah.
I'd like to add to the list the Cardinals tight ends. Zach Ertz caught all of his targets yesterday. He was a good possession guy. And then Trey McBride had 3 catches on 3 targets, played a career high 32 snaps. I think that position group is trending in the right direction after some quiet weeks.
But and real quick, I want to talk about Eno. I just think he provides a spark to that offense. He does some things that we see Williams and Connor just at a higher level, right? Where whether it's getting to the outside, to the perimeter, where they run that zone read with Kyler, I'm not sure that teams respect it as much with Williams and Connor in the game, and his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, right? He's just playing with a sense of urgency, like this means something to him, and not taking away from any of the other running backs. But when Eno is in the game, as I said, there just seems to be a rhythm and a tempo to the offense. And, Kyler will check the ball down, and Eno continues to make plays. So keep trending up, kid. I mean, he's doing his thing.
Soul Pancakes, thank you for the $2 super chat. Drop passes and a fumble at the 1 yard line. I think he is insinuating that Vance has got maybe lucky in some certain instances. And listen, like, I agree with you. I banged that hammer home that the Rams would have done more had they not fumbled on the one. And I don't know if I can credit that.
But that's
to
a game, though. But that's a game.
That's the NFL. And I looked it up statistically. You know what the Cardinals are in total defense after 4 weeks, guys? Take a guess.
I'm going to go 17.
Bo?
Yeah, middle of the pack.
16th overall with this group.
Damn,
After those 3 Pro Bowl quarterbacks you opened the season with, like I said before the year, if the Cardinals can hover around 20th, knowing what their offense should be, they'll be fine. And he's got them 16th overall. I can't give him enough props, even though it was ugly week 1. I mean, think about those numbers are skewed considerably because of they had to play Patrick Mahomes, right? So here's what I don't.
When is Vance getting his extension, y'all? When is Vance?
Poll
the fans. Poll the fans.
Yeah, I don't want to see a lapse now. Bo said a great point yesterday. We're watching the game is when the offense finally scored a touchdown. It's like, now we can't have the stereotypical letdown drive defensively. And that has happened. And they came back and they had the interception with Gardeck, and they were fantastic. So kudos to Vance. All the credit in the world. Elon, you're right. Philly will be a huge test. And these players are going to be tested. This is trending down for Monday, week 4. For the Arizona Cardinals. What the hell's going on with Rodney Hudson? Why does get out of here with that? To let my family in. Broken garage door opener. Get him out of the dust storm we got going on. Be safe, everybody. Rodney Hudson, the snap over the head. He had to leave the game briefly. He was getting blown up times in the first half. I don't know why we can't get like just high caliber play from Rodney Hudson on a consistent basis. It's disappointing. Speaking of disappointing, Rondale Moore, or maybe more so Rondale Moore's usage, it's gross. I don't like it. If you're going to play Rondale Moore, give him a real route tree, Bo Brock and Damien Anderson, and just is coupled with this is all offense purposely. First quarter points, we haven't seen any. And quickly, Soul Pancakes, that's been being bailed out. Batted passes isn't scheme. That's an overthrow by Baker. Isn't Vance. Let's see how he does against the Eagles run game. Well, he played a bad offense, and he made him look bad. So we'll give him some credit. Thank you for that $5 super chat. Bo Brock, what are your thoughts trending down for the Arizona Cardinals week 4?
Yeah, they have to kind of buck this trend with the first quarter points. It's still they held serve at 31-0, right? That was what it was going into the week, and that's where it finished. It was atrocious, just offensive performance by both teams in the first half. The only touchdown that was scored was the pick 6 from Kyler Murray. Yeah, I agree. Rodney Hudson in those crucial situations, you just can't have that. I know they say so many complimentary things about Rodney Hudson, how he's the most dialed-in guy. He watches the most film. He's as helpful as anybody on that offense for Kyler Murray. But, as far as just making the plays or not making the plays, I feel like, especially in that first half, he really shot the team in the foot with that botch snap. You just can't have that. But in Rondale Moore, I think that's more. I'm not down on Moore, the player, but as far as how they're utilizing him through one game, very sample size, but it also gives you a little bit of a recall to last season, how it didn't work out well, and he was going more east and west instead of north and south. It's just you hope they can figure out actually a really solid way to utilize them and also do that. And it's a detriment to Greg Dortch's snaps and usage. It's very concerning.
Yeah, and it looked forced, guys. It looked like, as we talked about, intentional to try and get Rondale the football. And it appeared to be plays that we haven't seen throughout the first 3 weeks where, as you mentioned, Johnny, Greg Dortch being a receiver who runs receiver routes, and in terms of Rondale's package, right? It's going to be reverses, it's going to be tosses, quick screens. And I don't think you draft a guy. I think you understand his athleticism and his talent and his ability, based on his speed and his measurables, what he'll do on game day. But I think that he needs to be able to play the receiver position. I think he can as well. And I don't know if it was a new guy coming back, we just want to automatically thrust him in the lineup and then try and make things happen, because that type of play calling didn't happen the second half, and we saw the Cardinals offense start to take off, go on from the 5-yard line and go 95 yards and get a score, right, and do things that we weren't characteristic of them from that first half.
I like a couple of these comments. Elon 5, I'd still rather have a declining Hudson over, quote, garbage Harlow. And I think that's the position the Cardinals are in, is like, we don't have a better alternative. We invested money and picks in this guy. And even if he is up and down, we have to live with that because the alternative is disastrous. I mean, the San Francisco 49.
He had a bad day. And anytime that shit happens, guys. It's an unfortunate circumstance.
But when was the last time we could say Rodney Hudson really shined for this team? I mean, it's been a while now. I think it might have been 3
weeks. It might have been 3 weeks.
Yeah. But hey, the opposite of this. I mean, we were talking when we talked to Zach Allen and he had his sack and he got on the quarterback in 3 seconds, is because he just bull rushed the center for the for the Carolina Panthers, and it was like a turnstile. I mean, at least with Rodney Hudson, you don't have that. The grass isn't always greener, and obviously Harlow is not the answer, and Rodney's the best you got right now. But it's been a season and a half, and now we're still seeing botched snaps. It's just something that they need to figure out.
I like this comment from Daniel. Trending up, Kyler Murray as a leader and field general. Step aside, Kliff. It's something we haven't really talked about, the jarring back and forth. Probably would have led our post-game show yesterday had they not rallied after that point. And it's funny, the national media, they're easy to dog on Kyler when he has a poor first half. But when he's jarring at people in a leadership role in the second half, everybody's quiet. And K1, the defense was the big reason for the W yesterday. Kyler Murray played really good football in the second half and orchestrated drives. And again, he has not been perfect this year, but let him own this offense. Let him own this team. Let him be the spokesman. I watched his entire post-game press conference. I like the answers he gave. Somebody asked him, does the slow starts bother you, even though you're getting off to fast starts in the second half and you won the game? And he goes, I have high standards for us, and we should be scoring on it something like every possession. And Kyler Murray's leadership, even in this 2-2 rut, it feels like, Damien and Bo, that the adversity he's facing right now could pave the way for a big second half. It just feels that way right now with K1.
Well, I like what we've seen from Kyler just in those moments where you've needed him to step up, where we talk about, those signature moments that's the 2-yard conversion, him just going out of his body and shedding would-be defenders to make a play, not quitting, right? And that's showing through examples. You have to have some fight sometimes. We see it in baseball all the time, an umpire just get kicked out just to spark the team. And I think that that's the place that Kyler comes from. And I think that maybe from the mainstream media aspect, they didn't just really understand him, right? Who can understand a 22, 23-year-old with millions of dollars? No one really can, who's uberly talented. Kyler is a special player. And I think that with this new contract, he understood the new responsibilities. So he's doing everything he can, as he mentioned, within the game plan to be successful, right? If you call a play 3-step, and I hear people questioning him about, his reads and his throws. And I throw this out.
He's an easy target.
But I'm going to throw this out to all the fan base. I guarantee if you watch every film, everyone isn't 100%. Everyone doesn't have a 100% QBR, rating every week. We know that those games are like perfect games, and drawing the comparison to baseball, like perfect games in baseball where they go out there, oh, he was 20 for 22 and 379 yards and 4 TDs. That shit doesn't happen every day. So I think that people just take for granted special people like Kyler because they see him. They see him. And granted, you have to keep on winning and doing everything. But if this team can get to 3-3, Johnny, before Hop gets back and they start trending up, meaning their health, this team could be dangerous. This can be dangerous towards the second half of this season.
Well, there's a couple things, right? It could either be the Cardinals are 2-2 and they clearly haven't played their best football, or the Cardinals are 2-2 and they're never going to get it together. I mean, it's two
Right,
trains of thought. And, you know, I would think you probably just look at Kyler Murray's track record and say, man, they haven't played their best offensive football. The rest of the league better look out because it's coming at some point. I mean, it's inevitable. He's not just going to go a full season by having these uneven games. So that's something to kind of be excited about if you're an Arizona Cardinals fan.
Yeah, and while they're figuring it out, John Imbo, while they're figuring out, you just don't want them to get behind the 8 ball too bad. You just don't want them to, to be in such a deficit. Yeah, and they haven't. And luckily, that's what I mean. Like getting to that point where Hop returns, whether you're 4-2, 3-3, I think that just bodes well for this team in the long haul because they are getting healthy and that Hop can make that offense dynamic. And Bo, as you mentioned, they haven't played good football up to this point.
They got a bunch of new players.
Inconsistent football. Inconsistent. They have played good football at times.
They've got new offensive linemen that are plugging in and out every week. They lost Chase Edmonds. They lost Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk was the most targeted receiver the first half of last season for Kyler Murray. Like, God forbid this team takes a little bit of time to get it going. And that's, I think, what we tried to preach last week is just like, let's take a deep breath. Let's look at the schedule. They play some teams that maybe are fraudulent. Maybe they're a little bit skeptical now. Cardinals should have an advantage against the teams that are starting, I don't know, Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston, whatever the hell's going on in New England. Denver looks like they're in disarray. Like, it's a long season. We're emotional on this show, but at the same time, anybody who tells you they know how this season's going to end, I'm sorry. That's a crock of bullshit. This team is 2-2. They haven't played good football, and they're 7 spots up for the postseason. They're 1 spot out. And if a certain team in Santa Clara wins tonight, Cardinals are tied for first in the division. And you can dabble on a little underdog fantasy on tonight's Monday Night Football action. If you're interested, we play every weekend. It's a blast. You can search for it in the App Store. Click on the link in the show notes below. Use that promo code PHNX. Underdog, get this, ladies and gentlemen, is going to double your first deposit up to $100. I cashed in at 100. They gave me an additional 100. I proceeded to lose it all, but I had a great time in the process. You'll have better luck than me using Underdog Fantasy. That's promo code PHNX. Get in on the action tonight, right now, before the Monday night game.
I'm liking this Cooper Kupp over higher 8 receptions tonight for the Rams. That seems low for Cooper Kupp. Matthew Stafford's prime target there for LA. Yeah, Underdog is a great app. I recommend you use it. Also, I recommend if you're having trouble sleep, I'm sure Kliff Kingsbury is up all night trying to figure out what the hell's going on with his offense. Well, I've got a solution for K2 and you. How about OGs? They're doing something completely different. They're changing the game. They launched their brand new Sleep Edition gummy. It's aquaberry flavor. It's delicious, and it's got 2-to-1 THC to CBN ratio. That means CBN. It's the compound that helps put you to sleep and keep you asleep. We highly recommend you check out OGs online at ogsbrands.com. That's OGEEZ brands.com and on Instagram. You can find their products in your local dispensary. Got to be 21 years or older.
Every year we get asked who's going to be the next Darnold, Dockett, Calais Campbell-esque player on the defensive line because it's been so long, gentlemen, since we have seen that kind of production. And 4 games in, I think we might have found a solution. Zach Allen right now is top 10 in defensive tackle pass rush win statistics via ESPN Next Gen Stats. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen, alongside the likes of, Chris Jones, Malik Collins, Christian Wilkins. He has a grade 18.8. Zach Allen, really the first kind of glimmer of hope on the Cardinal defensive line in some time. And that's not a knock on J.J. Watt. J.J. has played some decent football for the Cardinals, but he's year to year at this point in his NFL career, especially after the health scare he just had. Zach Allen is the first legitimate building block that Steve Keim has added on the defensive line in, I would say, 5+ years. He looks like the real deal. 4 passes defended yesterday, our DraftKings king of the game, a sack. I mean, he is, I think, the most consistent defender they've had.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. It's happening at the right time, and you're glad to see him finally get home, get a sack in yesterday's game, and it was Rashard Lawrence was playing at a pretty high level before he had his hand injury and then surgery, and then J.J. Watt, what he does on and off the field, and he's been a great mentor to Zach Allen. You got to like that group right now, but that group, Lawrence is already hurt. Allen's got his own injury history. JJ's got his own injury history. It's like the biggest key for that is staying healthy. But when they are, they're as disruptive as they come in the NFL.
And you'd like to see the young man playing at a high level and doing everything right. As we mentioned, bull rushing, you see multiple moves, you see him batting down balls, and you just see him feeding off that energy every week. And anytime that you have a player that you've developed and that have come in, you continue to see grow, and he's making those top 10 lists, you know that you're doing something right. And when you're winning football games. And you guys, I always talk about the trickle-down effect, right? Like what's his play going to do? How is it going to help this team? And you see with the pressure that Zach Allen can do and bring, it's going to help the linebackers keep people off Zaven Collins, and it's going to help the secondary where that quarterback is going to either think about or want to or actually do get that ball out quicker than expected and going to create opportunities for those DBs. And if he's knocking down the ball or knocking it up in the air, Johnny, that gives those DBs an opportunity to get those picks too.
Could Steve Keim go, I don't know, 3 for 4 with his first 4 draft picks of the 2019 draft, all getting extensions? Kyler Murray's already there. Byron Murphy, Zach Allen could be next. You should be next. And subscribing to the PHNX Cardinals podcast. We got live shows. We got audio-only podcasts dropping mañana. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Check out gophnx.com. The phenomenal work of our own Howard Balzer. Great game recap yesterday. A lot of heart shown by the Arizona Cardinals. You can check that out. Become a member. Just under $60 for the entire year. You can cop a free t-shirt from the PHNX merchandise locker in the process. Again, like this video right now. Subscribe to the podcast. We will be back this week. Game week. Can the Cardinals get a home dub finally against the Philadelphia Eagles? For Bo Brock, Damien Anderson, I'm Johnny Venerable. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.